G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Another disappointing loss for the Crows and plenty to talk about, so let's crack straight into it, shall we? G'day, and welcome again to the Weekend Wrap brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Pretty average day out on Mother's Day for the Crows again this week against Carlton, going down pretty hard. And joining us for our weekly wrap-up is Macca. How you going, Mac? I'll take you off mute, Mac, because I'd actually really like to hear what you got to say. How you going, mate?
Oh, I'm doing well. Who was that?
Who was who?
Oh, I thought I heard another voice said.
No, you didn't.
Okay. I didn't.
Maybe
Okay.
in your head, I don't know, but...
I think I'm getting a bit of an echo back somehow.
Oh, yeah? Well, you've probably got your speakers up too loud because everything's going all right here.
And I'll just turn it down a bit then. Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I got you, mate. How's your Mother's Day?
Well, it was good. The whole tribe, they came here today and sort of ruined watching the Melbourne St Kilda game, but I managed to have a glimpse here and there of that. But no, I did. Look, the family was good, and I love the young lads, and they think their grandfather's a bit of a lad, so we have fun.
Yes, Nikki might be along later. She had some Mother's Day commitments as well. Look, thanks to everyone who's joined us on YouTube and on Discord. Don't forget, if you're on Discord, there should be plenty of commentary tonight. So if you do want to have your say, feel free, please, to put your hand up and we'll get you on. Already a good crowd starting to build in the live studio audience. Macca, so before we get into the game, let's just do our usual roundup, shall we, of the weekend's results?
Why don't we do that?
Why don't we do that, mate? All right. First of all, we had on Friday night we had the Power coming up against the Bulldogs, and they were successful. 12-14-86 by 17 points over the Western Bulldogs, 10-9-69.
Well, at least it was a game worthy of watching on a Friday night, which made a big change from the week before. No, it was a pretty good game all round. I thought Port played much better, but they could only play as well as the opposition let you. And I think the Bulldogs, although they led by 4 points at half-time, after half-time I thought that Port much too strong for the Bulldogs. And they were weakened by the fact that they had 3 injuries as well. But the Bulldogs this year aren't the Bulldogs of last year. And they had whether it was arrogance resting Bolton-Fairley or whether he actually had an injury and they were just sort of looking after him, I don't know. But look, apart from McRae and Smith doing hard work in the centre and Norton up forward, they didn't have much else, I didn't think. Whereas on the other hand, Boak and he dominated the midfield, and for a change, they had a couple up forward taking marks and kicking goals. So hard to judge out of the game whether Port have improved a lot, but one thing for certain, I think the Bulldogs have gone backwards a bit, team.
Yeah, attitude, I think. I mean, they've got a little bit of a personnel problem, but attitude, I think, is the thing for the Western Bulldogs at the moment, mate. It seems to me that whether they've got ahead of themselves a little bit or what, I'm not quite sure, but anyway. Not the end of the world. I don't really care. Next one, Freo really destroying North Melbourne 15-12-102 by 78 points. North Melbourne 3-6-24. A pretty forgettable sort of match.
Yeah, look, it's a slaughter. Contrasted two teams, one on the way up and the other one bouncing along on the bottom. I mean, interesting comparison being that North have only won 5 of their last 30 games, whereas Freo won 7 of their last 8. So it tells you what the comparative strength of the two teams.
Does indeed.
Brayshaw's developed nicely into their main mid, which is they don't really need Nat 5 to come back. He might upset their rotations, etc. Because Brody, who they pitched from the Gold Coast for nothing, he played quite outstandingly as well. Darcy and O'Driscoll, I could go on. They had lots of good players, but as for North Melbourne, not much there. Taron Thomas, a couple of others. Horn Francis tried hard, but no, it was a massacre.
Disaster, yeah. All right, the next one, Richmond 17-11-113, far too strong for Collingwood 12-14-86, 27 points in the end to the Tags, sort of getting a little bit of mojo back.
Yeah, they actually got to a lead of 9 goals in the last quarter, Feen, before Collingwood got 4 goals right near the end to make it look a lot closer than it really was. I thought Darcy Moore got an absolute spanking by Lynch, and he was very well supported by Rewalt and Martin. Yep. They had a little bit of arrogance. They put Short into the middle. He's been an outstanding defender, but he's also an outstanding midfielder. So they are building up a little bit of momentum, Richmond. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. One of the teams that you said couldn't win the flag, Mac?
No, I don't think they can win a flag, but they can actually. Mate, they might even sneak into the finals. But
of course they're going to sneak into the finals. Jesus.
They build it. Be fun.
Of course they're going to make the finals. God.
Yeah, well, they make the finals, but I don't think they'll go. I don't think they'll win it. For the Pies, well, Chris was absolutely outstanding, and he helped along by Adams and Younger Dacos. But yeah, I think Collingwood they've got a long way to go before they're going to go and get anywhere. And as you said, I forgot to mention Bolton. I'd love to have a player like Bolton in our side. The
exactly
speed and the way he changes the game.
Yeah, exactly what we need, Mac. Never mind. Next one. The Suns having their obligatory just when you thought they were shit win. 10-15-75, 14-point winners over Sydney, 8-13-61. Pretty solid win by the Suns.
Didn't see all of it. I only just saw the last quarter, and they started off. I think it was exactly equal at three-quarter time, and you would expect Sydney to go on with it. They didn't. Gold Coast, they really dug in and they worked hard, and they outscored them 2-2 to 2 points in the last quarter. Rankin finally showed a little bit of form up forward, and the coach has got a bit of a knee injury, which they say was a tweak of an existing injury, but. No, full credit to the Suns, as you say. They have the obligatory win here and there when you don't expect it.
Yeah, the key with the Suns is to try and catch them with your tips. Catch the one that because you know they're going to bob up every now and again. You just got to try and catch it. I didn't.
No, always fall through the sieve for me.
Yeah, the Giants falling back down to earth against the Cats and. Back to situation normal for the Giants after giving us a belting. The Cats 12-16-88, 53 points over the Giants 4-11-35.
I looked at the game before it started, and I thought, gee, Jarvis could win this. You've got Prince and Ruck. He'll win the Ruck. They've got Green come back to centre half forward. They've got a mighty good midfield. Well, that's on paper. They actually played the game, and then Geelong were just far too good. And they really need to change a coach. Their game plan is just absolute utter shite. They play ringer rosy with the ball. They don't necessarily play directly. They just waste the ball. And on the other hand, Geelong, they had really had targets up forward. Cameron got 5 goals. Stengel got 3. To me, GWS, they definitely need a new coach because this coach is taking them nowhere.
I don't think so. And it's interesting, they gave us a spanking, the Giants, largely due to overpowering us in the midfield. And you can just tell when they come up against a mature, big-bodied midfield, they're found wanting. And the same happened to us today with Carlton, another big-bodied midfield, and touched us up. So that's a bit of an indication of where our issues really lie, but we'll get to that. Essendon having a good win, 16-12-108, 27 points over Hawthorn, 11-15-81. Probably the first disappointing match that Hawthorn have had under Mitchell, I reckon.
Yeah, I don't know. When Essendon start to play good footy, it's actually quite exciting, Feen. I'm not necessarily an Essendon lover, but they do play an exciting brand of footy when they get going.
Yeah.
They had like 5 late changes due to illness for a start, but Hawks always look comfortable and they look like they were going to win the game. But in the last quarter, Essendon just jumped out of the ground and kicked 8-1 and to win by 4.5 goals. And full credit to them. 2 metre Peter, he played the game of his life with 6 goals up at full forward. Yep. I love that Martin, who they picked in the pre-season draft out of nowhere. Very talented lad. He used the ball beautifully, and along with Merritt and Parrish. And for the Hawks, Newcombe, who was again another one plucked out of the VFL. Tom Mitchell. I was just going to mention him. He's just a fading shadow of himself.
Oh yeah. Well, he was always a Matt Crouch. He was an accumulator. Same
accumulated, not necessarily that he didn't damage you. The other one I want to mention too is just watching Sicily. I think Sicily, what worries more about his dream team score and what's good for Hawthorn. Keeps calling for the balls in the dead pockets all the time so he can get 3 for the mark and 3 for the kick, I reckon.
I reckon last week you called him as being a positive for Hawthorn. So anyway,
he was, but he had a good game. But he does have this habit of either having the kick off to get the 3 points or going in the pocket to get 3 and 3. And sometimes there are good options up forward which aren't used.
What do you think of McGrath?
I think he tried very hard. He's not necessarily the best finisher of the ball.
Because you would have been listening to the podcast on Tuesday night, I'm sure, where we dropped the rumour that the Crows are heavily into him.
Well, he can get the ball. There's no question about that. He can get the ball. Sometimes he uses it well, but sometimes he wastes it as well. But he's tough. He's hard.
Anyway, we'll move on. The next game, Brisbane predictably destroying West Coast 16-9-105, 75 points over West Coast 4-6-30. What a shell of a bloody side they are at the moment, West Coast.
Not much better than a waffle side, and they only play witches' hats. Lockie Neal, McCluggage, Zorko, they all played well. McGovern and Hearn for West Coast. Nothing more to say. No.
And this afternoon, before our game, Melbourne doing what they needed to do over St Kilda, 14-9-93, 38 points over St Kilda, 8-7-55.
Yeah, look, I think you summed it up very well right in that comment that you made. They did what they needed to do in the game. If the Saints ever got close, they just put their foot down on the pedal just a little bit harder.
Yeah,
drove more like I do. The Saints, they're pretty good, but Melbourne's in another league again. And
my impression of the Saints, Mac, is that I just think they're workmanlike. I think they're a workmanlike team. They'll get you some wins, but they just lack any sort of class.
I agree with your comment. Apart from Still's a reasonably classy player, but he was reduced a bit today. They kept a pretty tight clamp on him. And just to back up your point, you take Oliver. He would be possibly the best blue-collar midfielder in the competition. The way he works at the stoppages and around the ground is outstanding. And then they've got a white-collar worker in Petrarca who just does all the classy stuff. Langdon on a wing, I think he had 37 or something possessions on a wing, and he was outstanding. Brayshaw had 30-odd. They've got players all around the ground. I could mention, Feen, that Gawn was actually, thought, beaten in ruck for the first time this year by the Marshall-Ryder combination, but that's as far as that went because
I still think Gord
Oliver.
did some good stuff around the ground. Ryder's a good ruck still, and I thought he did all right. But anyway, that was.
No, I never thought Gordon had his colours low today.
I don't know. I didn't probably watch enough of it, to be honest with you. Yeah, so let's have a look at the ladder real quick. And the completion of round 8 sees Melbourne on top with 32 points. Freo and Brisbane behind them on slightly better percentage on 28 points. Carlton alone on 24 points. Geelong, Sydney and St Kilda on 20 points. Richmond into the 8 on 16. Collingwood just outside on 16. On 12 points, Bulldogs, Port, Hawthorn, Gold Coast and Adelaide. On 8 points, GWS and Essendon. And bringing up the tail, North Melbourne and West Coast Eagles. Oh, so, Mac, yeah. Let's get straight into our game, shall we? Don't forget, if you are listening on through Discord and you're in the live studio audience, feel free at any stage to put your hand up and have your say, because it was a pretty shit performance by Adelaide's. Carlton 17-14, 116. Adelaide 10-8, 68. A margin in the end which flattered us somewhat, 48 points, because the game was really over at three-quarter time.
Yep. Well, overall, I thought it was we were disgraceful. There was not enough desperation. We didn't seem to have the ability to read the play, or perhaps we're too lazy to care to run to the next spot. I don't know. Riley O'Brien, absolutely hopeless in the ruck. If he ever got the knock, it went straight to them. The Mumford type of ruckman's gone, and he's that type of ruckman. And no, look, it's unfair probably just to single him out because he had plenty of rotten players around him as well. But
no, I think it's completely fair to single Riley O'Brien out, because he had an absolute shocker. And when you get out muscled by Silvani at a boundary throw in and fall to the ground because of a bloke that's 10 centimetres shorter than you and about 10 or 20 kegs lighter than you, you got to really think about what you're doing.
I mean, he did the ruckman. He was opposed to with Dick Conning and Silvani, and any decent ruckman would have torn them to pieces. But no, his performance today was terrible. And look, he had a few mates in there in different areas of the ground. I just thought that if that's the style of play we're going to bring, we're going to go very close to being in the bottom 2 or 3 teams, because the one thing that was really, really missing was intensity thing. We didn't have
after half time. I thought the intensity was there in the first half, but after half time, I felt like when they got the first couple of scores after half time, we just fell right away, I thought.
Yeah, look, I will say this much, that I thought we started reasonably well, and I thought somebody had said to me, the umpire's been paid a few bucks to give Carlton a few freebies in front of goals to get them going. You wouldn't be surprised at it, because I reckon 3 of their goals there wasn't even a free kick there, and
no,
our blokes, they hung their heads and it declined slowly from there.
That's right. Yeah, one thing that I noticed, we brought in, and we'll talk about specifics in a minute, but there was one thing that really stood out to me that showed that we still don't have coaches that are implementing winning setups and game plans in the midfield. So we had Haitley on Cripps, right? We wanted Haitley to go with Cripps. Not a bad idea. Haitley be a good learning opportunity for Haitley. They're Haitley's probably body size in terms of his height, etc., is probably the best matchup for Cripps. But then Cripps was setting up right in Riley O'Brien's hit zone. So Riley O'Brien had hit it would hit into that normal zone where he just sort of taps it over his shoulder. And that's right in Cripps's wheelhouse. And because Jackson is actually trying to tag Cripps, we're actually playing right into Cripps's hands because we're putting it right in his bloody breadbasket. Why would Riley O'Brien be hitting there when the guy that is going to get there is the guy that's supposed to be tagging their best midfielder? It has absolutely blew my mind. Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. O'Brien needed to be coming from a different angle and hitting away from Cripps, hitting towards our attacking mids, Berry and Laird, etc., and keeping it as far away from Cripps as possible. But continually, O'Brien kept putting it in that little hit zone behind himself, and Cripps was just cleaning up.
100% right. I mean, O'Brien would probably be even better off just when he gets a tap to hit it straight down into his feet to turn into a scramble, because that's what we've got, scramblers. We don't have dashes from the midfield. Whereas what you're saying was quite right. What O'Brien was doing was he'd hit the ball forward exactly where Cripps was. Yep. Exactly where Cripps was. Yep. So Cripps could either have the choice of taking the ball and flicking it out, or just let him take the ball and get a free for hanging on. It was just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic.
It's just stupid. Surely, as a ruckman, you should have an awareness of where you don't want to hit the ball just as much as where you do want to hit the ball. And why would you have your setup so that the place where the ball's going to go is to their best player, and naturally our bloke is going to be behind him because he's trying to tag him? It just absolutely blew my mind. And that was just one example that sprung out to me with regards to how stupid our setup was in the midfield. And again, we got torched, absolutely pantsed out of the midfield. And at least we were playing the kids, so I can I'm happy with the fact that they were playing Schoenberg and Berry and those and Haitley in the midfield rotation. The problem was that these blokes should have been their 20th game playing together, and unfortunately it's about their second because we've hung on to Crouch, etc. for too long, and so we're now starting from scratch without, if you want to talk about rebuilds, we are now starting from, that's about game 1 or 2 of our midfield rebound. We've wasted 2 freaking years not worrying about rebuilding our midfield, and here we are.
Well, I wouldn't even say we've actually started.
Well, no, but at least we're playing the right play, or playing our young midfielders in their rightful positions. We wasted a year with Berry in a forward pocket. We wasted a year with Harry Schoenberg at half forward. We haven't played Pedley yet. He hasn't got the wheels. What you got to ask, why hasn't he got the wheels?
It's apparently a lack of a tank at this stage.
Yeah, but mate, he played midfield all through his juniors, and if he's not got a tank, then you've basically got to put him away and say you've got to work. It was a first round draft pick, Macca.
I'm in total agreement with you that should be the situation, but he was never played in the midfield last year at all, and they're starting to. But apparently, he's had minor injuries here and there, and he hasn't been able to build up the capacity to play on the ball. Where you've got to run perhaps like 15, 16 Ks for the day. But I see the chat that say he's likely a dud pick. I don't know that he necessarily is a dud pick because we haven't really seen him get fit and then play in the midfield. I think he'll go all right if he does.
Look, the problem is when he plays in the twos, they don't even play him in the midfield. There was games where he played all the way up forward, and I've seen him play a little bit of SANFL now, and he plays well in patches, but he runs out of puff. My question is why is he so far behind the 8 ball? And there are some players, Macca, as you well know, that just will not ever have the capacity to have an engine good enough for an AFL midfield. And surely to God, we would have done all that, looked at all his numbers with his testing and all the rest of it prior to the draft, and as much as he's got some great attributes, if after a season and a half he's not ready to play some meaningful midfield minutes in the SANFL, we should not have picked him up.
Well, I
Because we
totally agree with you,
cannot.
because if you have a look at all the other clubs, they're playing guys they picked up this year,
That's
let
exactly
alone guys
right.
they picked up last year.
That's exactly right. If a lad like Josh Rochelle can run out games from day one, if a lad like Sam Berry can run out games from day one, if Luke Pedler can't, and I'm not having a crack at Pedler, I'm having a crack at our recruiting staff, because the simple fact is in our recruitment over the last 3 or 4 years we've been very speculative, and when it comes on to our needs as a club, we just couldn't afford to be speculative on the midfield. We had too many needs on the midfield in the midfield to be speculative. And
Well,
Jad in the chat, I'm not going too early on Pedler because I think he's a good player. What I'm questioning is that it's going to take him another probably season and a half, hopefully only a season and a half, to be able to be a serviceable midfielder in our rotations. And we don't have that amount of time.
yeah, well,
Not
when you
questioning
use the word
his
speculative
skill.
in relation to our drafting, Feen, I presume that means shit house, because we've had some terrible picks in the last few years.
Yeah, not questioning skill, ability, or anything like that. I'm talking about Tank. Talking about
Yeah,
Tank. Because I like him as a player. I like what I see. He can get a bit of separation at the contest. My point is, if they knew that he was lacking in the tank department, and I know he had to spend the first few months on our list in rehabilitation because he had an injury, I get all of that. And hopefully Burgess can build that tank for him. I just hope he's not one of these players that doesn't have the capacity to build that tank like many do. Not
but
everyone can be an AFL midfielder.
apart from Pedlin, just going back to today's game, what really, really burnt my backside, Feen, was if they got the ball, say they got the ball right deep in our forward pocket or even in our goal square. They had players streaming out of there, and our players did not make the effort to run with them. They'd go out there and they'd be able to clear from defence to somebody who'd be 20 to 30 metres on their own. Yet that player had started in the goal square just like our players should have. I think that we were lazy. We weren't intent. Intensity is a thing. We didn't have the intensity, and look, they did. They did. Every ball. They made every ball a point of trying to get it. Whereas we had some players that did, but when you've got players around you that don't, even the players that are prepared to die to get the footy can't get it because they've got the odds against them all the time.
100%. Well, I think it actually. Uh, uh, People might hate on me for saying this, but I think it actually showed the value of Ned McHenry at times. Not that I want Ned McHenry in the team this week, and I know he wasn't available, but I think a lot of our blokes rely on Ned McHenry to do a lot of that grunt running, and he wasn't
Absolutely.
there, and as a consequence, there were holes.
Yeah.
I think overall our squad looks a little bit tired. Um, for one reason or another, that a lot of them are kids, etc. Josh Rochelle even looked a little bit tired at times, mentally as well as physically. Lockie Gallant looks like he needs a spell, which is what everyone was saying last week. There's a few that look a bit knackered, and it's unfortunately what we watched this week is the product of what's been happening over the last couple of years, and the fact that we are the youngest side in the competition. We don't have many of those 24 to 26-year-olds. So we've got a couple of mature age players and then a bunch of kids running around, and they're just getting buffeted aside.
Yeah. And
They don't have the
and also
tanks.
football, there's a lot. I reckon that 90% of it's played between the ears, and we saw that today. That when we started to get beaten, several players dropped their bundle thing, just dropped it.
Yeah, and look, that's going to happen, Macca. That's going to happen with a young team. and you saw the frustration from a bloke like Benny Keys who works his guts out, gets a couple of umpiring decisions go against him, and you could see that he was completely frustrated. And yes, he was frustrated by the umpiring, but I think overall he was frustrated in general. Um, and as supporters, I think we're going to have to put up with this for a while longer, because this team will go in fits and starts, will go in up and down cycles, because they can't run out a full season at that pace. Nix is trying to make them play a very accountable style of football. The game was very one-on-one until it broke open in the second half. We're relying on a lot of frontal pressure, which worked for us against Richmond, and it worked for us against Western Bulldogs. But against the bigger-bodied midfield of GWS and Carlton this week, we just get brushed aside. And I can't wait to see us play against Melbourne, who are also another big-bodied midfield, or Geelong, who are another big-bodied midfield. Will get slaughtered.
Well, we will.
And there's nothing we can do about
it. Nick said we were playing when we won 3 in a row against lesser sides. Nick said we were playing the brand of football that he liked, and this was the Crows way.
Yeah.
Well, what happened to the Crows way? Did it just get thrown out the window today? I know we're playing a tougher team.
No, I think you're being too critical. I think you're being too critical. You're asking this squad to sustain a game style that they're not physically capable to sustain yet, right? And they could do it against...
I'm critical about lack of effort, though.
Well, you know what it's like. Mental fatigue is just as bad as physical fatigue, Macca. And I just feel like the game style that he is trying to implement at the moment is difficult to implement against teams that have that big-bodied, fast, bullocking midfield. And we've seen it over the last 2 weeks. Richmond aren't the same. They're not that bullocking midfield. Western Bulldogs aren't the same. They're not that big bullocking midfield. They don't have power midfielders. We were able to stay front onto them and make it a grind, make it a physical contest, like an in and under contest. And unfortunately, against GWS and this week against Carlton, we were broken open too often, and they had all the run on the outside. We had nothing at the outside because we've committed everything to the contest, and and they just run away. The game was exactly the same as it was last week, Macca. Almost a carbon copy. Even Carlton, I think, scored 2 points more than GWS last week. It was almost a carbon copy.
Well, I cannot disagree with anything you've said there at all, because they do. You are right about the big body midfielder, and that is the trend in the competition. And I suppose your point is, and probably been proven by the statistics, is that when we played teams that haven't got a big body midfield, we look okay, and then when we play them with a big body midfield, and then we look very second rate.
Well, yeah, that's right, and God, I'm as disappointed as anyone else about the result of the last couple of weeks, and I'm disappointed more so because what we're seeing now is as I said before, it's the result of our lack of development through the midfield, and the fact that these players this should be their 20th game together in the midfield as a rotation, as a group, and it's not. It's their second. And that's for a variety of reasons: poor recruiting, poor development, weird selection, hanging on to other players for too long, all that sort of stuff. But this is the result of it, and it feels to me like we are only at the beginning of our midfield development. And as you and I both know, Mac, and everyone listening knows, midfields win games of football in the AFL. That's the type of game that it is these days, and we've neglected it. We've neglected it with poor recruiting, with poor development, with inconsistent selection policies, a whole range of factors, but this is the result.
Well, and I think if you want to really go back to where the great neglect has been, and you did touch on it before, it's been in our drafting and our trading.
100%.
We, they're just not there because we never got them.
100%. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. You know,
I mean, and then Fisher McAsey, he turned out to be a dud, but before that, before he was drafted, I think he was a pick 5 or pick 6 or whatever
6.
he was. That had to be a big body midfielder. Had to be.
Well, it had to be the best available midfielder at that pick, Macca.
Yep. Yep.
And I know that they got spooked because of Talia, and McAsey was the best defender in the draft and highly rated and all the rest of it. But it was like, I heard Bickley on the radio after the game today say that the coach is involved in list management committee and all the rest of it, and that's true from what I've been told as well. But if the coach sat down after that season and said to Hamish, "Look, mate, we need a key position defender as high as you can go," and Hamish turned around and said, "Well, what about your midfield?" and the coach turns around and says, "No, we've got to cover Talia with our first round selection," then he deserves to be bloody ridiculed, because it was an absolutely stupid choice. And it wouldn't even matter, Mac, if McAsey was holding it down a regular position in the ones. It would still have been a bad decision, because no point having a gold-plated bloody key defender if you're not getting the ball. The best defense is going to get killed when you're up against 70 plus inside 50s. The best defenders in the world aren't going to do you any good.
But I reckon we really do have to have, when we had when they had the whole clean out of the club and replacing all the dead wood, etc. The one department that wasn't touched was the list management team, as they call it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this list management team, we really, really needed a quality ruckman, a good tall ruckman who can actually do something. And in the SAFL, there was one playing there for West Torrens last year who was best on ground in the grand final. And why would we not have got him onto our list? Why wouldn't we? St Kilda have got him. He just showed unfortunately he's done his knee, but he showed that he really is right up to it at AFL level, and much, much better than Rob. And but it annoys me. We just don't.
The thing of it is, Mac, with that, let's look at that situation, right? So you've got Riley O'Brien, and you've had Kieran Strawn on the list for a couple of years. And Strawn, the first time he played AFL, he looked all at sea, but the second time they gave him a go, he looked a lot better. He's been playing very well in the twos. But here's my argument. Strawn is a dead set backup ruckman. So if you're not going to play him instead of break glass in an emergency, then why wouldn't you delist him and bring in another player to see if they're any better? And that's the scenario I would have gone with. It's like, Kieran, we love you, mate, but you're never going to be our number one ruckman. We need to explore other opportunities with rucks in case Riley goes down, and we're going to bring in this young lad. That's what should have happened. If you're a professional sporting organisation making professional decisions about list management with a very limited number of spots on your list, then you've got to make ruthless calls, and we don't make those ruthless calls. And that's nothing against Kieran Strawn, because I think Kieran Strawn should be rucking ahead of Rob right now. But
I agree with that. But we just put, instead of looking around for something like that, we put Benny Davis back on the list, and he's never going to be handy for us.
Well, and the thing is, just to finish my point, the thing is, even if we replace Riley O'Brien with Strawn, they're both 27 years old. They're not. Neither of them are young rucks. Strawn is 27. So he's not the long-term answer, is he? So why wouldn't you bring in the young lad from Eagles and give him a crack? Why wouldn't you? These are the kind of decisions that, unfortunately, our club don't seem to be able to make properly. They don't. I don't know what it is. Whether they're in too much of a cocoon, or I don't know. I don't know, Mac. Um, it's got me a bit stuffed, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, yeah, Bickley was raving on after the game, and he really said, and he was certainly not having a go at our draft pick that we did take this year, but he said we should have moved heaven and earth to get down to pick 4 to get the what's his name? The lad, was it Finnegan? His name?
Yeah.
Yeah. He said because he's a tall, big-bodied midfielder, left foot, a beautiful kick, and he said exactly what we need. And but I know it's easy for Bickley to say that, and maybe we did try, and maybe they wouldn't cooperate. But that is the type of player we have to get. Rochelle he's a great little player, and I think he's going to be a great player for us a long time. But that's not going to solve the problem that we've got in the middle.
And that's entirely the point, Macca. That's entirely the point. And if the coach is involved in list management, then he should be able to put his foot down and say this is what we need. You know, Finn Callahan, he's had 4 matches. He's averaging nearly 16 disposals. Nearly 4 marks a game. You know, he's going all right. He's started already. He had 18 touches against St Kilda a couple of weeks ago. Like, it's not a huge start to his career, but he's playing AFL football in his first year in a team with a strong midfield, and he's going all right.
Mm.
Exactly the type of player that we need. And Josh Rochelle will be a good player for us, but he's too small. He's too small for the type of player that we need right now. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's look at some stats. Well, let's talk about selection real quick because I was quite happy that Matty Crouch was omitted. I thought the ins were okay. The thing just following on from our previous little conversation just then, the thing that I can't understand, Macca, is that Luke Pedlar, who is the bloke that we've just talked about that needs to get miles into his legs and build an engine, how many kicks do you reckon he got this weekend?
I did it. About 13?
Pedlar?
I don't know.
Pedlar got 0 kicks and 0 handballs, didn't touch the ball. Do you know why? Because he was the travelling freaking emergency.
Okay.
Why? Why would you make Luke Pedlar the travelling emergency?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
No logic to it. I mean, the guy needs to get form.
Do you see what I'm getting at with regards to these strange selection decisions? You know, he's either in the team, or he's playing in the twos. We need him to get bloody, yeah. And M Morris in the YouTube chat raises a very good point. Next week's an SANFL bye, so he's not playing next week either. So here's a lad that we need. Here's a lad that we need to get freaking kilometres into his legs, and he won't play for 2 weeks.
Well, you know, one good point I saw there, you know, to solve that sort of problem, they should just take Davis with us every week as the emergency.
Well,
because he doesn't have a real future, but let's the boys that have a future get the miles underneath their legs and show the form in the SANFL to force us to pick them.
Yeah, Wally says in the chat, you know, can't Pedlar come in next week? Well, he can, but where's he going to play? He's not going to play in the midfield. He's had a week off. He hasn't got the legs as it is. So where are you going to play in a forward pocket? We got NT Rabbit in the chat that wants to have a say, so I'm going to bring him in. And also notice that Nicky's there. Hi, Nick. How you going?
Hey guys.
G'day, Nicky.
Rabbit, you're on mute, mate. How you going?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, lady and gentlemen, doing?
Not too bad, but you might just have to speak into your microphone a little bit more.
Can you hear me better now?
Beautiful.
We can, young rabbit. Yeah, go for it, mate.
So just referring back to the conversation before about big-bodied midfielders and our ruck issues, bear with me, this will take a minute.
That's all right.
So our club has a big problem with it's been reactive for a long time. It's never proactive. It's always chasing what everyone else has already done. And by the time we get there, that's not the thing anymore. So Riley O'Brien isn't going to be it. He's yesterday's ruckman, but the other lad, Strachan, he isn't going to be that either.
No,
so he is a better tap ruckman, but he's much of the same thing. We can solve, bearing in mind this isn't going to solve all of our many multitude of problems, but we can have a big-bodied midfield and a better ruckman all in one player who we've already got on our list. He's 202 centimetres, 105 kilos, and he's described as athletic enough to play on the wing.
Yep.
That's Riley Thilthorpe. Now, I know people have described him as better as a forward than a ruckman, but I think him as a forward is a luxury. He needs to be a ruckman. And if you think back to the games that he played last year when he went into the ruck, having watched Riley O'Brien be stodgy, instead not do much, Thilthorpe went in there. He didn't necessarily win all the taps because he was a lightweight, shall we say. He's certainly not a lightweight, but a lightweight compared to some of the guys he was up against. But as soon as the ball hit the ground, he was in there and he was winning the ball on the ground, using his skill and then using his running to burst away. This is what we should be doing. Forget about him as a forward. We should be getting ahead of the curve and he be our running ruckman. I mean, it's a throwback to the Dean Cox days, perhaps, as an additional midfielder, but it's still away from where people currently are and into a new idea for the future. That's what we should be doing.
Well, everyone's talking about, wouldn't it be great to have the next Max Gawn? Well, Riley Thilthorpe potentially is the next Max Gawn because he's tall enough and he's got the endurance. And if he can work on his competitiveness in one-on-one marking contests, then he's absolutely that player. And I think you're right. You're absolutely right, mate. Playing him at full forward and just sticking our number one draft pick there to get 5 touches because our midfield are getting torched, it is a luxury. 100%.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty solid suggestion there, young rabbit.
Yeah, I mean, I see his future there. I mean, he's not the same player as Gawn, so Gawn's obviously a bit bigger and he's that magic fist he's got that he can get the ball anywhere he wants to go. I don't think Thilthorpe's going to be that, but I think he's a better runner and I think he's got better foot skills, better hand skills. I think he's going to be a better all-around player. He's like halfway between Brodie Grundy and Max Gawn, which could be the next step to go. But since we're down the bottom, we should be pushing proactive. We shouldn't be just copying the teams who are at the top now because it's never going to catch up.
Well, and your point about us... Sorry, Nick, go on.
I was just going to say that I think when we saw him last year, that he actually looked a lot better when he was playing around the ruck and the midfield than what he was up forward. And weirdly enough, I actually think it will actually protect him a bit better. Even though, yes, there are the bash and crash, etc. thing with the ruck. But I think just him not having to deal with the way that he was being treated by those big body defenders. It's just weirdly, I actually thought he just looked more comfortable in the ruck. So I think you're spot on there.
Yeah. Your point about us being behind the curve is a good one for another reason too, Rabbit. And that is that I reckon Hamish has gone about trying to build Richmond's midfield. With all these little mosquitoes.
Well, we've got lots of little tiny guys who are fast and all effort. And that only worked because Richmond stacked those guys around Dustin Martin and Trent Conchin, and we don't have either of those players.
No.
Let alone the fact that was 5 years ago, not today.
Yeah.
Yeah. The midfield's moved on from the Richmond midfield. It's now the Melbourne midfield, which is how big are those blokes, and they can run, and they're fast.
Yeah. Very good points, mate.
Well done, Rabbit. I think you really hit one there, mate.
You win You win the Sammy's voucher, you'll just have to get it off Macca, that's all.
No, I haven't rung in lately.
Challenge accepted.
They cut the
All right, thanks, mate.
They cut the voucher back to $50. It's not worth ringing in for.
Jesus, mate, you're a cheapskate. All right, so yeah, that's my, I guess, gripe about selection. The rest of it kind of selected itself with the outs that we had. I wasn't too disappointed with the selection, but yeah. So let's just have a look at the head-to-head stats. 25 odd down in total disposals. Can't really kick the ball, 243 to 218. Handballs were exactly the same, 145 each. Inside 50, 74, the most we have ever conceded in our history, to 49. You just cannot win a game of football if you concede 74 inside 50s. The end. It doesn't matter how good your bloody forwards and defenders are. You will never win a game of football conceding 74 inside 50s.
No.
And what disappointed me is that it didn't really seem as if Burns or the club had any plans to try and stifle any sort of flow. We were very frontal pressure against Richmond and the Bulldogs. We were very one-on-one early against Carlton, but when they were starting to break it open, we didn't seem to have any answer to that, as if they didn't predict that might happen. So, anyway, contested possessions 142 to 128. We got torched in that 14. Uncontested posies, they got more of the ball on the outside, not to quite the same extent as GWS the previous week, but still a fairly heavy disparity, 243 to 232. Hitouts is an interesting one. We had Riley winning the taps 46 to 22, but let's just delve into that a little bit deeper, because if you have a look at the hitouts to advantage, 26% of Riley's hitouts were to advantage, so that's all around the ground, not just in the centre. So he had 10 hitouts to advantage out of his 40 odd, and we only won half of those as a consequence. So we only got the benefit of 5 of Riley's hitouts for the game.
It just gets worse the more you mention it.
And when you've got a young midfield like that, and as I pointed out before, where he was putting the ball was ridiculous. It just played into Carlton's hands. They were just running through his hit zone time after time after time, and poor old Haitley and they were just the wrong players to be in that hit zone. He shouldn't have been putting it there. He should have been putting it somewhere else. But I don't think he has the capability to do it, because I think the way he contests the ruck, he hasn't got the ability to, like, his body is only pointing in the one direction, and he's not a tap ruckman, so he basically palms the ball forward or to the side, depending on the angle of his body. I don't think there's any real, I don't often see very many proactive taps from Riley O'Brien.
No, if you watch somebody like a Marshall or somebody like that, they'll go for the tap and not even flick it over their head to somebody, because they know where they are. That's right. That doesn't enter at Rob's head. Rob's head is, I'm going to jump and hope I hit the bloody thing. And that's about all it is.
Yeah. So as a result, we got fairly well done over in clearances, 42 to 31, 14 to 11 in centre clearances, 28 to 20 in stoppage. I don't have the quarter-by-quarter stats this week because the game was too late, but I would imagine that those numbers evened up a little bit in the last quarter, when we got a fair share of it in the last quarter when Carlton took an early shower. Around the ground, 114 marks to 93, 11 to 6 marks inside 50, and I think at one stage we didn't have any marks inside 50, or one, and they had a lot. 12 contested marks to 5. Again, it's such a massive area of concern. Himmelberg did not make any impact whatsoever. Riley O'Brien didn't take a mark. Billy Frampton didn't take a mark. No contested marks whatsoever. Tackles 49 to 56, which shows that we were second to the ball and at least making an effort. And yeah, the rest of it's pretty much by the by. So, those head-to-head stats, they really tell the same story as they did last week. We were just outclassed in the midfield. Simple as that. There's not much more you can say about it.
Yeah, it's action replay, really.
That's right. If we have a look at some individual stats, and I don't want to spend too much time, I don't want to feel like we're whizzing through this, but there's no need to dwell on this game, I don't think. Lairdy, 33 touches, 14 kicks, 19 handballs. He had 7 tackles, 8 clearances, gained 330 metres. He had 5 inside 50s, 6 score involvements, went at 90% disposal efficiency, 12 contested, 22 uncontested possessions.
Yeah, I wouldn't be bagging Lairdy. I thought at least he always does give it 100%.
Yeah, he gives it 100%. I thought it was one of his least effective games. I didn't think he. I don't think he was. Put it this way: if you're going to leave the responsibility for the best midfielder in the opposition to your least experienced midfielder, then you want your experienced midfielders to step up. And I actually thought Laird and Keys both had down games, not in effort because they'll always put in, but in terms of their effectiveness and their impact on the game. Geordie Dawson, 30 touches, 23. Sorry, Matt, go on.
I was just going to say, but the structure at the midfield was what the coach was asking for. I mean, it was the coach.
Yeah, but it's also around the ground.
And O'Brien stupidly was just hitting it that way.
Also around the ground, though, Mac, not just at centre bounce.
Yeah, I still think he was by a long, long, long way from being our worst player.
I didn't say he was. I just said it was one of his lesser effective games. Same with Keys, a lesser effective game, not as effective. He got 33 disposals, and it didn't feel like a 33 disposal game from Laird. And neither Laird or Keys had any real responsibility against their key midfielders. That responsibility was left to the younger players. And so I feel like if you're going to do that, that's fine. But then your experienced midfielders better have a big influence on the game, and I didn't feel like they did.
No, Dawson, not too many people did.
I know, but
I know what you're saying is right.
No one's arguing about that, Macca. No one's arguing about that. But it starts in the midfield. We got crunched in the midfield, didn't we? So they're in the midfield. So they were down. The end. Yes, other people were down too, but how many of those people were down as a consequence of our midfield playing like shit?
It is a good point.
Thank you. Jordan Dawson, 30 touches, 23 and 7, 10 marks, 3 tackles, 577 metres gained. He had 3 inside 50s, 7 score involvements, 7 intercepts, 7 contested possessions, 20 uncontested possessions. Arguably the best of a bad lot, I think.
Big pardon?
Arguably the best of a bad lot.
I don't think not even arguably, he was the best of a bad lot.
Harry Schoenberg, Benny Keys, 29, 11 and 18. It's unusual for Benny to have more handballs than kicks. A couple of people mentioned on the chat that he looked tired. I actually think our whole team looks tired at the moment, but you'd forgive Ben for being a bit tired with a couple of months that he's put in so far this season. So, we can't be too critical. 6 tackles, 2 clearances, 306 metres gained. He had 3 inside 50s, 2 centre clearances, 6 score involvements, 3 intercepts, 11 contested possessions, which is also a little bit down for him. Again, I felt Laird and Keys probably had similar games in terms of their impact.
Yeah, you are right that they didn't have the impact they normally do have. And I do agree, Keys looked rather tired.
Yeah. Harry Schoenberg really worries me at the moment. 22 touches, 9 kicks, 13 handballs, 3 marks, 6 tackles, 2 clearances, 265 metres gained. He had 2 inside 50s. He had 5 score involvements, 1 intercept. Only went at 50% disposal efficiency. That's the bit that gets me about Harry. He looks tentative. He looks like he's lacking confidence. He doesn't look like he's got the same ability to show initiative with his disposal. He doesn't even look really fit to me. Macca, what's your impression?
Well, I think so. I think psychologically he's a bit affected. Last year when he came in, he was on the rise. That he started and he had a reasonable start, and then his next game was a little bit better, and then a little bit better. And last year he was a player who was growing in belief that he belonged there. And I thought if you go back and look at his last 2 or 3 games, he was. We kept saying, well, he's our future in the midfield. This year he's. He started off with a couple of poor ones, and I think he got dropped, and then he's been brought back in. I just don't think he's got the same self-belief that he had last year. I think he'll get it back eventually, but for young lads trying to find their way in a side that gets belted, it is a hard job, and I just think at the moment he hasn't got the same belief in himself that he had last year.
Yeah, someone in the chat saying that he might have some external issues that he's working through. Kind of
maybe
whether that's true or not, and I don't want to delve into that. But if that's the case, then that could be a reason. But I don't think you'd lose your ability to play football. And at the moment, he just seems to be 20% down in all facets of his game. You know, his disposal efficiency dropping has been alarming, because that was one of his key strengths, his ability to put players into space and to find to find the right option at the right time. But God, he's not doing that at the moment. Anyway, Sammy Berry, 21 touches, 9 and 12. Actually felt like he had more of it than that. 5 marks, 9 tackles, 1 clearance, 221 metres gained. He had 2 inside 50s, 3 score involvements, 4 intercepts, only went at 57% disposal efficiency, 8 contested possessions. They're very interesting stats for Sam, because I felt like he had a lot of inside ball, and I felt like he had more touches.
Oh, I did too, actually. The 57% efficiency is probably the one negative in his game, because I thought he played like you. I thought he had more of the ball, and he certainly, with his presence, even if he wasn't getting the ball, his presence was there, and pressure, etc. So I actually liked his game, and I thought it showed that he's definitely up on the upward curve. One of the few players going upward.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mako. I felt very much the same. I thought he was in our top couple for impact, I guess. And let's face it, disposals were pretty down across the board. So he was in my, half a dozen. Luke Brown had 18 touches, but I didn't feel he had any real impact defensively. Chase Jones, I thought, had a nice game. 11 kicks, 7 handballs. 3 marks, snuck forward, 414 metres gained, which is what you want. He also had 3 clearances. I noticed that he might have been the start of the last quarter, was in and around stoppage a little bit, and got some nice clearances as well. So whether that's a little bit of a sign, who knows?
Self-belief again. I mean, he's a guy that's actually growing in self-belief, and like you, I thought he was one of our better players.
Yep, 5 inside 50s, 3 score involvements, 3 intercepts, 77.8% disposal efficiency, 7 contested possessions. I thought he certainly wasn't disgraced down back chase, and showed a little bit around the ball. Mitch Hinge, 17 touches, which surprises me the other way. I didn't think he had that much of it. 13 and 4, 8 marks, 259 metres gained. Seemed to come into it more in the last quarter, I think.
Very flattering stats, because I reckon about 6 of those disposed were kickoff and points.
Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly. Today, 16 disposals, 13 and 3, 5 marks. Thought it was an okay. I thought today's game was hampered by Frampton's inability to be a key position defender, which I hope we have now decided once and for all that he is not a key position defender, because I said to you a couple of weeks ago, Mac, that if teams start funneling their attacks through Frampton's man, he will get torched, and the Giants have done it, and Carlton have done it.
Yeah.
And
he's a weak link. He's definitely a weak link, and I think the Frampton experiment, he had that one good game, but when we look at it back at it retrospectively, he was standing Ugle Hagen that particular game, which is a young lad for Bulldogs who I don't think tried particularly hard himself. So I just think Frampton was given a gift that particular game, but no, he's out of his depth once we play the good sides.
Well, Burns had enough of him because he shoved him out of the defence altogether in the last quarter. They had Duday on Curnow, and at least Duday bloody competed, for God's sake. Billy was behind it. He trailed his play. The trouble with Billy is that he plays defence like a forward, so he's always watching the ball. And
not his man.
And not his man, and he doesn't defend. So if he can't make the contest, he just gives up. Just plain gives up.
Yeah.
You know, with a resting bitch face on him, because he's, not gotten the better of again or something like that. Anyway, so I thought Duday's game was a bit hampered by Billy. Actually, I didn't think Duday was our worst either, but certainly his effectiveness was curtailed a little bit because he had to cover for his mate.
100%, because he was trying to cover two players.
Exactly.
Duday.
Yeah. Walker 16, 10 and 6 looked dangerous when he had opportunities, but obviously didn't get enough opportunities. What a kick. How many goals did he kick? Walker, 2 goals, 1, which isn't a bad return given the service. Frampton was spoken about was horrific. Will Hamill.
Reasonable.
I thought his game was good, but Jesus, every time he gets hit, I feel like it's almost bloody like career ending. I feel like it's just like one hit, because he got hit in the middle of the ground and he stayed down for a minute, and then later Cripps absolutely tossed him aside like a cloud when he went through and kicked a goal in the forward lines there. And Hamill, when he gets contact, he just doesn't seem to have any tenseness in his body, does he?
No, I'm with you. I fear for him because he's had a couple of bad concussions, and I reckon that he's always looking like he's nearly going to get one all the time. There's a couple there today that look very close to it. And having said that, I thought that he got better as the game went on. I thought his last quarter was reasonably good, but I think he'll be in the side again next week. But I'm like you, I am very concerned for him physically.
I worry about him because he just doesn't seem to be able to brace. He just doesn't seem to have that natural instinct to brace, and so he's always loose when he gets hit and prone to whiplash and all sorts of things.
If you're when you brace though, it's actually that's when it's worse for a whiplash. Whereas if you're loose, it's actually better for you in terms of falling. It's actually better to be loose. So,
Nikki, explain that logic to me, because that doesn't seem to make one piece of logical sense to me.
Because the one time I got a concussion from the whiplash with the hip was when I had tensed up. But in gymnastics, when we actually teach people to fall, we actually teach them to relax your body, because that's how you actually don't injure yourself very badly when you fall. You actually do need to be relaxed.
No, if you get your head blasted into the ground, it won't work either way.
I'll just refer you back to Brodie Smith when he took that mark last week, and what did him in was the fact that his head whipped back when he hit the ground, and
absolutely,
as a consequence,
and he's coming from what height?
Yeah, but that's
as
the
well.
same as getting hit.
That's always that's always going to be. But if you're tense, if you're tensed up, it's actually going to be even worse. It doesn't prevent injuries, but it prevents the injuries from being worse.
I don't think that's the case when it comes to concussion, Nikki. Because
you can't. It's different for different people as to how they get concussions. Like I said, I got a concussion, but I didn't get hit in the head at all. It was whiplash, and that was probably one of the worst ones that I had. So it's unfortunately we still don't know enough about it.
Well, we know enough to know that it's caused because of
injury prevention overall.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about concussion. And we know that concussion is caused by the brain rattling around in your head. And
yeah, and that's different for different people.
So Jackson Haley, I'm just not going to fucking argue about that because it's pointless. Show your work next week, Nick. I'd like to see some medical stuff on that one. I'm not sure what to make of Jackson's game because I felt like he was set up to fail, and I felt like at times he did some okay stuff. 15 disposals only, 10 and 5, 3 marks, 6 tackles, 4 clearances, 345 metres gained. He had 5 inside 50s, 3 clearances, 4 score involvements, went at 74%, 8 contested possessions. Don't know.
I thought he wasn't.
What do you guys think?
Wasn't horrible. Was not horrible. I thought he did a reasonable job on Cripps. Cripps is a monster. You can't really stop Cripps, but you can limit him a little bit. But look, I didn't think Haley was hopeless. I would certainly play him again one more game and see how he goes. I'll say this about him. He gave 100%. I never saw him squib once, and I did see him chasing even when he couldn't get the player, which is what a lot of play people didn't do. So I don't think at long term he's going to be the answer, but I would still give him another game just to see whether he can go one step further next time.
Nick, what do you reckon?
Oh, he was... I mean, it wasn't helped at all by, as you said earlier, about where the taps were going down as well for Riley. He was just, and that's how good Cripps is as a midfielder. He was just reading those beautifully, and it just left Haley kind of ball and player watching. He tried, but he's just actually not big enough or strong enough to go with him. So why were we sacrificing a midfielder when that was a losing battle?
What would your alternative have been?
Rochelle, Nikki?
Oh, a bloody better ruckman would have been good. It was... I mean, you know the issues I have with Haley. He's not an AFL footballer. He still spends a little bit too long ball watching, and I haven't liked him when they've tried to use him as a tagger because he seems to be in two minds. Do I watch the player? Do I watch the ball? And that gives them a chance to break from him. I thought he had there were a couple of good little moments there, and he was trying. But other times, I really didn't like when the ball came free and we had a player that was running the right way, was trying to get to the ball, and Haley would come in and got in the way. That's the frustration of the bits that I saw of the game today with that happening.
My personal view is I actually thought it was
we didn't have anybody down at Cripps.
I actually thought, all things considered, it was probably Jackson's best game for us so far.
No doubt.
What was that, Matt?
No doubt about that at all.
Yeah. And I think it's worth persevering with him. I was actually a little bit heartened to see that he ran in straight lines, that he didn't shirk the contest, that he was trying to be creative. So I was actually pleasant against a very good midfield, and he had a very, as we know, a very strong opponent to try and curtail, as well as trying to have an impact on his game, on the game himself. So I wasn't, even though Cripps obviously got off the chain, I wasn't disappointed with Jackson's game, and I'm interested to see how he goes if we give him more time, in not necessarily a tagging role, but as that bigger bodied midfielder, because God knows we need someone to step up.
Yeah, I think we've got to give him at least another one, if not another 2 games. So, just to once and all for all decide whether he's going to be part of it or not.
Yep. Lockie Scholl was insignificant in this game. I don't know what to make of Lockie.
Well, he's a lovely user of the ball, but he's not going to die to get it. There's no doubt about that.
Not always, Macca. He missed a few targets today.
No, accepted. But at his best, he's a good user. But he does. At times, he looks like he craps himself a little bit. So
yes.
And at times he could get to the contest, but it's going to be a hard one or a physical impact one, and he just takes those little shorter steps to make sure he doesn't. And that's my he's got skill, he's got ability, but he's not tough enough.
Yeah. I don't think there's any room for players like that at AFL level anymore. Even your outside runners. I mean, you've got to be getting a lot of stats. You've got to be an Isaac Smith, basically, if you're going to be that sort of player. You've got to have that level of impact. And if you're not having that level of impact, then you're no good in the team. And he only had 9 kicks, so if kicking is his weapon, he only used his weapon 9 times, Macca, and he went at 80% disposal efficiency, which isn't too bad, obviously, but just not enough of it. How many inside 50s did he have? Only 2 inside 50s. So of those 9 kicks, only 2 of them resulted in inside 50s. He only had 4 score involvements for the game. Just needs to get more of the ball. If that's his weapon, if that's what we want him to be, then he needs to get more of the ball. Simple as that.
Well, being very blunt, he's a little bit of an Atkins, in the sense that Atkins wouldn't get the hard ball, but he was good when he had it in his hand.
Correct.
And so I think Scholl fits into that category.
Yes, he's only 21 for Eyes Billy, but there aren't too many players that start off being a little bit tentative that end up being monsters, or at least, adequate in that regard. Geordie Butts, interested in your perspective on him. His disposals don't really matter, although he took 6 marks. He had 3 score involvements, 5 intercepts, went at 92%. I'll let you guys say what you think first.
Well, I think he ought to change his name to Jesus Christ, because he was crucified about 3 times in the first quarter.
Was he ever? Oh. My God.
I mean, seriously, he played a very good game, I thought, but I got 3 goals given against him that weren't there. And you take those 3 goals out, I thought overall he played a pretty good game.
Nick?
He was well and truly up against it with the way the delivery was coming in. I reckon 1 or 2 of them was slightly there, Macca. So technically those calls were correct, but we normally see those type of calls let go because they're quite minor and there was no kind of impact in a way. What was that?
Did we get any of those, Nicky?
No. Oh, God, did we not? They've been crucifying us since the Richmond game. And then they only start to pay us free kicks in the last quarter when the game is well and truly done and dusted. We see you. I thought he was trying hard. I did find it quite interesting though, because you could see when he was talking back to the umpire, like, how the hell are you paying this kind of thing? They didn't do him for dissent, whereas other players have been done for that.
Very surprised. Very surprised. They were soft on dissent in this game.
Oh, well and truly. I think he would probably feel that he could have done better, but I thought, considering the way the ball was coming in and everything else, I thought he was doing the best that he possibly could, in spite of all of that.
Yeah, I thought he was the best of the defenders, like the tall defenders.
I had him in my top three. I had him in my top three because they didn't get a lot out of McKay. McKay scored 4 or 5 goals from free kicks. And I felt like Geordie did well, did what he could. When the floodgates were open and all the rest of it, and really was a good matchup for McKay. McKay's a big, strong fella, and Geordie was giving away a few centimetres, I don't think. Let me just have a look. I don't know whether McKay actually got credited for a mark. Let's have a look. Harry McKay. Where are you, Harry McKay? No, Harry McKay didn't take a mark, and that probably reflects how I feel about him. Actually, I thought Butts was probably my second best player behind Dawson, to be honest.
Yeah, I've got him in my 5, but that's a little bit high. You have him.
Yeah, I know, but we always disagree.
That's the beauty of it, Feen.
That's exactly right. That's why we have. And then there's Nicky, who includes
God help
random people.
Can I be excused for today just because of what went on?
You can't be.
See too much of it.
No, you're first. You're going first today.
You bastards.
Look, of the rest, I thought Rochelle was quiet, particularly in the second half. He looked a bit out of sorts, to be honest with you. Shane McAdam did okay, I thought. Took a nice hang that should have been a free kick paid against him because he put his hands fair square in the shoulders of the other bloke.
No, you're allowed to do that.
You're not allowed to do that. No, you're not allowed to do that. It's push in the back. Not allowed to do it.
No, it's not anymore.
Yeah, it's one of their little funny bylaws.
Are you serious?
It's a push in the back if you don't take the mark, but if you take the mark, it's fine.
Yep.
Christ. All right. Good mark, Shane. Lockie Gallant.
It does defy logic, Feen, but it is
Of course
correct.
it does. Of course it does. It's ridiculous. You can't push a bloke in the back in any other manner in a marking contest. But if you're taking a hanger, if you're trying to climb up his shoulders, then it's all right.
Yeah, you don't put your hands on his shoulders and use them as a lever.
Unbelievable. Lockie Gallant looked tired. It looks to me like he's starting to run under the ball a little bit, which shows me that he's maybe just lacking a little bit in confidence in marking contests. Elliot Himmelberg looked better when he was in ruck, to be honest with you. I think he got a rocket after half-time because he started making a few more contests after half-time, but how many marks did he take?
His first half was just graceful.
Well, he only took 2 marks for the game. Neither of them were contested. I didn't get back on the Berg train, and we all were questioning how sustainable his last few weeks were up until last week.
I've never been on it.
Lockie Murphy, I'm really worried about Lockie Murphy. That neck seems to be very, very vulnerable.
But he did some very nice things before that, though, Feen.
Yes. He's good around stoppage. Very good around stoppage.
Yep.
But I worry about his neck injury. I just wonder whether he needs to have a prolonged rest to really get that right. Braden Cook looked completely out of his depth, but when the ball sort of came his way, he did a couple of nice things. People have got to remember with Braden Cook that he is a mile off. Like, for him to be playing AFL football this year is a massive achievement, considering from how far back he's come.
Yeah, actually, I don't mind him playing, and I know that I see in the chat they say he should be go back to the twos. I think they're playing him knowing that he'll get beaten, but he has got so much talent, that boy, and in every game he has a little bit more experience. He's just going to get better and better and better. I will, at forecast, he's going to be an absolute gun and he'll be a very good player next year, and he'll be a gun the year after that.
I find it really interesting with him because he's kind of quiet at the start but he really comes into it in the last quarter, which I think is a massive testament to him because, as you guys say, he's still very much a kid in terms of games played, even at SANFL level, let alone AFL level.
Well, he's never played an SANFL game before he got drafted.
No. He's pretty much just come straight in. And I think the fact that he stays in games, that even though, he's getting beaten and we know he's possibly going to get beaten, he won't drop his head.
No.
And that, I love that. And I think that's why you've got to keep him in the side whilst he can still, he's
I think
he's not getting tired.
The only danger of keeping him in the side and him not getting much of the ball is that his form drops off. So I'll be a little bit careful. Yeah. We've got to remember with him that he's coming from a long way back. He played a season of under 18s in his draft year, and he still got a bit of conditioning, but his natural footballing skills are quite evident. So I agree with you, mate. It's certainly an exciting prospect. I think we need to be careful with him.
Anytime he actually does one of those nice little smooth skill things that he does, like that take in the last quarter in his goal, that forward handball to him, and he just put that one hand out and just absolutely plucked it. And how many other times have we seen like players just absolutely fumble that ball, and then he topped it off with a beautiful goal on the end? You can just see that commentators just know, and they always talk him up.
Yeah, you can just see his natural ability, and I've said before that I had a bit of a connection to the South Adelaide Footy Club in that draft year, and he was always the one that they said, apart from Horn Francis, was just a guy. But again, if you have a look at here's an interesting thing to think about. We've got Pedler in the twos. We've got who's the other kid that's in the twos? Thilthorpe in the twos, and yet we've got Braden Cook in the ones. We've got Harry Schoenberg in the ones. We seem to have more luck with later picks when it comes to these high-end talents sometimes. Riley O'Brien, we've talked about, woeful, needs to be dropped, needs to have a good long hard look at himself. His opinion of himself is not seated in reality. He needs to go and objectively look at his tapes, because he got towed up by a midfielder in the ruck and got embarrassed by Silvani in the ruck. It cost goals. His tap work is atrocious. He's selfish with his work in the middle, because he taps to where it's convenient to tap instead of where he needs to tap it. And I just think he's full of himself, Riley O'Brien, and he needs to go back and have a good long hard look at himself. And you talk about deficiencies in list management. Whoever gave him a 5-year contract needs to be taken out the back of the Crows' sheds and flogged, because it was the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah, vigorously too.
Vigorously. Thanks, Mac.
I mean, a 5-year contract, FFS.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so that's it for the individual stats. Overall, a very, very disappointing game. I actually thought we might bounce back, I thought we might be a bit stung by our performance against GWS, and I thought we might bounce back and put in an effort. But I actually don't think at the moment we've got the effort in us. And we've got who we got next week? We've got bloody
Brisbane,
another flogging. Then I think we've got Geelong at Alphabet Stadium. So that's another, pardon me, flogging. So these boys aren't really any farther ahead of themselves than what they were last year when you look at it.
It is going to be interesting because Brisbane don't have a tall forward line anymore. So what are you going to do with our back line?
Well, we'll just pick them and so they can get beaten.
Well, maybe it's a good opportunity to drop Frampton and give Worrell a go because he's probably better suited size-wise.
Yeah,
now that McStay's out.
He is, because he can play on smalls.
My Inquisitor reckons they're getting Hipwood back.
This week or...
Well, I'm just going by what's in the chat. So I still think Worrell needs to come in. I think he needs to be rewarded. I don't know how he played on the weekend, but he's had a good run of form. And Frampton has shown his limitations.
Very much so.
Why give Frampton another game where he can just, rack up disposals and look like a millionaire because he's got no opponent? Let's give Worrell that opportunity.
Yeah. Also, Gallant, I think, needs a rest too, Feen.
Yeah, I was resistant towards that idea last week, but I think you're right. The people that have been saying that, I think he does look a bit tired. We've got a couple of people in the chat that would like to have something to say. So, Sir, welcome aboard. Come in. How are you, sir?
Can you hear me, Feeninx?
Can do. How you going?
1 second, hold on.
Tell us all about it, mate.
I think he might be having some... I'll put you back into the pack.
I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha. Have you got us?
Okay, yeah. So does anyone have Riley O'Brien's home address? Someone can barricade his door before he leaves for the game.
I thought you got to think go around and build him up. Sorry, man.
I don't understand why he or does any of you notice this? Whenever he's in the center square, he always lines up on a 90-degree angle.
Mm.
He's never facing his opponent. He's always on a 90-degree angle, and then these opposition ruck can easily tap it forward towards their goal. I don't know why he does that.
Because he doesn't like being jumped. Because he doesn't like being jumped into.
Well, I wouldn't really know what Rob's thinking at any time that he's rucking. Seriously, because it's not obvious.
Okay, well, I don't know. I feel like we're so devoid of talent right now. They just need to give over these next few weeks, because we're going to get thumped anyway. Realistically, playing Brisbane, Geelong, right? So they need to give the younger kids in the SNFL a go, and the ones they need to find out who is going to take this club forward. There's so many. There's so many players that they could give a run to. It's Worrell, Arnell. We need to give these kids a go. I don't care if we get thumped. Stop trying to get wins on the board. Try and find our next crop of players that are going to take this club forward.
In your opinion, mate, have we got all the players on our list at the moment that are going to take this club forward, or are we a few drafts away yet?
Oh, we're 4 or 5 years away, man. Our midfield is just diabolical. I have no words for the drafting in terms of midfielders the past decade. Our last midfielder best pick was Dangerfield, right? And what else have we got after it? Not much else. We've got a reject from Brisbane as our best mid. And, you can't rely on Keys to be running out games like he has last month every week. But the guy's tired. He can't carry every game. So, and I mean, I heard some people saying that Laird had a decent game. I barely noticed Laird, so
I'm with you on that one.
he was invisible to me today. So even if he got 30 touches, how many of those 30 touches were effective? Not many, I'd say.
I agree with you on that one.
I'd still give. You need to give like Fogarty. I reckon you need to give Fogarty another go. Himmelberg has been, hasn't made any impact in 3 weeks. I really don't know. We're missing Phil Thorpe. Definitely, we haven't got a second marking tall forward.
Well, everything you said is true, but who are the players that are going to be the solution then, mate? I can't. We haven't got too many there that are going to make. At the moment, what you said before is correct. It's going to be several drafts away before we actually get there.
Correct. So it's hard, guys. Like we just don't have enough talent. Like I was listening to 5AA after the game, and Vic said it so perfectly. We just don't have the talent. Like it's not the coaching. Like one of the callers called in and said, "Is it the coaching? Is it we don't have the players?" And Vic said, "We just don't have the players." But they haven't picked the right players. That's what Vic said.
Yeah,
if that's right, and I think it's probably 70% recruitment and 30% development, because I think we've got some shortcomings in the way we're bringing these kids on, but 70% on recruitment, then surely it's time we turn that department over. Surely we need a fresh set of eyes on that.
Someone also asked Bix whether we should get a new, recruitment manager, right? And he said he didn't want to make judgment on that. Well, obviously he doesn't want to because he's affiliated with the Crows. But he said, you just look at the past draft picks, right? It just proves. It's just you just look at what's happened, right? All those players that Hamish has picked or Hub has picked are not doing much in games right now. So he basically summed it up. They're no good.
Yeah, look, the very fact what Vic said, what you'd said, because I heard him say exactly what you said. He didn't want to pass judgment on it. If he thought we'd done well, he would have said that. The very fact that he made that comment says he thinks we've drafted shit out, but he doesn't want to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because he's affiliated with the Crows, so of course he's not going to say that. But I don't know, guys. Like it's so disheartening. Like we play 3 good games in a row, and then we get dished up these 2 games in a row. It's just it's really hard to watch this team, but that's what happens in a rebuild, I guess, right?
Yeah, I used to be a very passionate supporter when I used to go there physically, and lots of yelling and screaming and all the rest of it. But these days I don't have a seat, and I watch it from home, and I've learnt to be more placid so I don't scare all the neighbours with my screaming and yelling. But I must admit today, I reckon they would have heard me about 3 blocks away. I was getting that bloody angry, and seriously. And it was garbage. We were watching garbage.
5% of my anger was directed towards Riley O'Brien. That is the biggest cock-up of a contract, of a 4-year contract I've ever seen. Right, the guy won the yellow jacket in a year. We won the wooden spoon, right? And they gave him a 4-year contract, and he can't football. The guy can't handball. He can't kick. He can't tap to advantage. He lumbers around the ground. I don't understand that decision. It blows my mind. How can you have a player in a team that can't actually kick or handball the football? I don't know any other ruck in the AFL that can't kick or handball.
Well,
Can someone name one for me? Because it's ridiculous.
Compare him to Marshall's of St Kilda. It's a beautiful mark and a beautiful kick.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
anyway,
it's ridiculous.
I feel like you're about to have an aneurysm. So look, I don't disagree with anything you got to say, mate, and I appreciate your passion. I appreciate you coming on. So go and have a little lie down, and we'll back up again next week.
It's okay, guys. I'm getting my anger out on the show.
Yeah, no, good.
talk to him about it. You know, my wife hates football and stuff, so I'm getting
Oh, you poor bugger. Yeah, I get it.
I will say this. I reckon you were spot on the money, mate, so well done.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, mate. Mick, come on board, mate. Give us more wisdom.
Mick, he's already got some good stuff to say. Come on, Mick.
How are you going today?
Good, mate.
Well,
good.
we had a very happy day today watching the game, and we were delighted with the team, Mick.
I was lucky. You went to watch it half time and then had to go to work, so I missed the last half, which is the third quarter, which is probably a good thing.
You lucky bastard.
But just going on what's being said about the game and that, and Nicky's comments about Haitley. Just got a question for Nicky. Would you rather Haitley playing on Cripps or Matt Crouch?
Spot on.
Because I think I'm a lot more happy with Haitley's game than Matt Crouch would have done.
Spot on.
And,
good point.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
Haitley's only played about 10 games. So how about we give him another 10 and see how he goes when he's not following around after one of the biggest midfielders in the league. And with, I won't swear on the cast about Riley O'Brien.
Well, but that was my point, Mick. Is that I think that was wrong to make him just purely try and be a tagger. No, can I finish, please? It was a loss from the start.
No,
not
you
only
already
for
had
us
your
as a
say,
team,
Nicky.
but also for Jackson.
You already had your
But
say.
who else do we have with that size? Who else do we have that he's just not going to throw away like an insect?
We don't.
Unless we sacrifice our number one midfielder in Ben Keys. Who else do we have of size? So I think it was a case of catch-22. We had to put on who we had. And that comes back down to the recruiting of the club. Like, the recruiting of the club's been, I agree, like that Fisher and McCasey's pick was just, just a total waste of a pick six.
You just shake your head, don't you?
And I without flogging the dead horse being Matt Crouch, I think, how many games has, I'll get his name in a minute, totally slipped in mind. Young mid played the day and he got his first real run on the crack at it.
Oh, Berry,
yeah, thank you. He actually had a good game in from what I can see.
Yep.
I liked it.
I think we have got young talent coming through. Yes, not as high a picks in the mids as what we would have liked to have seen. I think you've only got to see where we are on the ladder in the SANFL. We can't be totally talentless. And I think one or two picks this year, at the end of this year's coming draft, have to be mids. Yes, a large, big body mid and someone with speed would be handy. But I don't think other than that, we have got some coming through. My biggest worry at the moment is what the hell we're doing with our forward line. Our tools, I think Gallant needs a rest, and then I think he's got a future. I don't think Himmelberg's got a hope, and I don't think that Thilthorpe is a forward. He should be, as people have said tonight, ruck. So who the hell is going to be our third mid?
I think Tex has to play till he's 42.
Yeah, I think we better start cloning him or something.
Yeah.
Well, I thought we did, and his name was Darcy Fogarty. Unfortunately, that experiment didn't work out, did it?
No, I just don't know what's going to happen to our forward line. We've got Gallant, but who else?
See, the thing about the forward line, Mick, is that you can structure up your forward line a few different ways and be successful. The traditional two talls and a couple of mid-size and a couple of smalls is one way, but there are other ways you can do it too. And whereas I think with midfield,
but you got to have midfield to play to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, with midfields, I think really you've got less options. There are certain components that you need to have, and I'm not sure whether we have those components. We've probably got bits and pieces of it, but it's a bit hard to tell if we've got all the components yet because they're not getting played.
Yeah, well, this is the first game really where you can say that we're playing our future midfield because
Yeah,
Ben Keys has still got years to go. Like he's only 25,
yeah,
so he's got years to go. Like he's got at least 5-6 years to go, which hopefully we're not down the bottom still in 5 or 6 years. Lairdy's got another 4 or 5 years, good years in the mids. So like we haven't got any. We didn't actually play for once any deadwood in the mid, which was good to see.
mm. Yeah.
Even though we didn't have the experience in there for sure, and we still need more talent. I'm not saying we don't, but at least we didn't play a list clogger.
Well, that's right. I'd rather, and that's why I was a little bit more tolerant of today because at least we had a better configuration in there. My issue was that configuration should have been in there for the last 15 games. And instead we've wasted games by keeping Crouchy and Sloan in there, and as a consequence, Haitley's only just getting a crack, Berry's only just getting a crack, Schomburg's only just getting a crack. Whereas they should have been in there as at least 50% of the time for the last 15, 20 games. So that's why we're seeing the results in the midfield now instead of a year ago. And I think it set our rebuild back 2 years because we haven't developed that midfield properly.
At least a year.
Yeah.
And can we please bring Murray back in? And then anybody who ever whinges about Murray again, just give him a slap.
No, I'm with you because one thing I do like about Murray is he's raw as hell, but Jesus, he gives 100%.
Apparently played like shit.
100%, and he can defend, which is a novel concept for a tall defender.
Well, do you remember Macca and I had this conversation a few weeks ago, Macca? And
yes.
What your words now shock me, Mr. Macca. Because I asked you directly, I think about 300 times, would you rather have a bloke who can defend versus a guy who can distribute? And you wouldn't answer me. And now you're all over Murray like I can't say because it's a family show. So...
Well, I didn't want to answer you because I wasn't sure which is going to be the best, so I thought I'd just play it out and see.
Bullshit.
Dean, I think Mac is still pulling the splinters out of his bum from sitting on the fence over that one to this day.
Yeah, that's right. The whole picket got lost.
Well, I should like you, Mick. You've gone strange lately.
Mick's really grown on me now too.
No, you don't get Mick. The one thing you never say Feeninx is right. He knows he's right all the time, mate.
I have noticed that over the 5 years of listening.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll let this go. I've got to get back to work.
Very good.
Mate.
Thanks,
See
mate.
Yeah.
All right. In the absence of anyone else that wants to come up, you two scrubbers, I need your votes.
Well, Nicky's first.
You bastards.
So, Nikki, it'll be Riley O'Brien, 5 votes. Billy Frampton, 4 votes.
Are we doing worst on ground? Okay.
No. I'm just looking at
I've only got
last
the
year's.
best.
I'm just looking at last year's votes here and seeing, what your history is.
Not good.
Anyway,
Oi!
come on.
So, 5 votes. Dawson.
Dawson for 5.
Jones.
Jones for 4.
Butts.
Butts for 3.
Duday. And then Berry.
Gee whiz. Macca?
Well, my votes are based on 2 premises, Fiend. My first 3 votes are based on people who have actually won their positions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I'm giving 5 to Dawson,
Mm-hmm.
4 to Walker, 3 to Jones,
Yes.
and then I thought Butts tried his ass off, and I'm not counting those goals against him because
Butts tried his ass
really
off.
shouldn't
That's
have been.
very good, Macca.
So two
Butts
to
tried his
Butts.
ass off. You're
And-
sticking with Butts tried his ass off?
Yeah, he did. He did actually. Both of them, and one for Berry.
Very good. All right. I've got Geordie with 5. I've got the other Geordie with 4. I've got Berry with 3. I've got Jones with 2. And I've got Tex for 1.
So what is your order, Fee?
Dawson, Butts, Berry, Jones, Walker.
Oh, you got the same 5, just shuffled around a bit.
That's correct. I think we've all got the same 5 except for Nikki, who's got Duday in there for 1 instead of.
I had Duday in instead of Walker. He was just kind of on the outside.
That's probably a fair
I thought there was a bit more down back going on than up forward.
So I'll count those up and we'll update those numbers in the chat on Tuesday night. So rounding off, there's a bit of work to do down at Adelaide, and it'll be interesting to see what spin and what response comes from Nix in the coaching box over the next few days, media-wise. I think we've been brought crashing down to earth after we were the competition's darlings for a couple of weeks there with some nice wins. I think this season is going to be very much about the matchups, and I think when we match up against these big-bodied midfields, we're going to struggle. I think we do better against smaller but pacier teams. I think we can handle that a little bit better because we seem to be able to stay in the contest a little bit longer. So the next couple of weeks is going to be very difficult. We've got Brisbane, who are big and strong around the midfield. We've got Geelong, who are obviously the same. So another couple of weeks of pain at least before we might get a bit of respite against West Coast. Although West Coast will probably find a magical vaccine for COVID and stupidity over the next couple of weeks, and they'll come out with a full squad against us and kick our asses. So
probably at the moment we've gone from Cinderella to the ugly sister feed.
Yeah, we certainly have. All right, let's call it a night. Thanks to everyone who has joined us on YouTube and on Discord.
Hey!
What?
Cockwomble.
No, you don't get a cockwomble tonight.
Ah!
Well, I'm sorry, you rocked up late and it's already 2 hours, so I haven't got time. And your cockwombling lately has been less than adequate.
I got some good ones though.
Oh, come on, bloody hell.
Well, you mentioned one of them just then. I think the West Coast players who took themselves out to the nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
But then also there were the Richmond players that also did the same thing. But I'm also a bit wondering about the interchange Stewart down at Port Adelaide for their game on Friday night, where the player chasing the ball goes like hell for leather, chasing the ball, ends up actually in the dugout. But somehow they seem to think that even though he didn't come in through the interchange gates, they can let another player go back on. So the player then who had chased the ball out goes back on again. So they've got too many players on the field.
They paid a meter for that.
They did, and they're very lucky they didn't lose a goal out of it. Whoops.
Yeah, I thought I'd just think Dwayne Russell. He's good for a cockwomble. When he does a Crows game, I'll tell you what.
He's got all our games. It drives me batshit crazy.
I know. So frustrating.
Outright barracking against us all the time.
It just becomes I actually find him terribly annoying, and the fact that he's got all our games really frustrates the hell out of me. Yeah. I tell you what else, something that really disappointed me, even though today the Crows and Carlton were playing for the Eddie Betts Cup, and Eddie's on the sidelines and all that. Was it just me, or did you guys get the opinion at the end of the day he is very much a Carlton man, and we really messed up a bit of a legacy by the way that all ended?
Yeah, agree.
I found that a real shame. There wasn't a lot of love for the Crows. There's a big affinity for Carlton. He's given us so many great memories. In fact, his best football was probably played at Adelaide.
Not probably. It was. It was play. It was played at Adelaide.
Yeah. I just found it really.
We had the earlier stuff on, and he was talking a bit there, and of course, and I think if you only kind of watched it from the actual game, then you probably had that impression, because the other commentators and everything else, and the way they put the package together, they were all talking more about Carlton and they're focused on Carlton. But Eddie, at the start, he was the one who actually would reference more of Adelaide. He thanked the club and the friendship and the other things that he had there. And then he also, when they talked about, which of his goals, and his favourite goal was actually one of the goals of the years that he won with us, and he talked about it because it was like his family members who designed that Guernsey, and his kids were there for that game and everything else. So he's the one. He actually talks up the Crows more than other people who talk up Carlton.
You made an assumption, because I did see all of that, Nikki. And,
you did see that? Okay.
Yeah, and he was talking about events that occurred while he was at Adelaide and things that happened during his stay at Adelaide, but I didn't hear the same genuine love for the place that I heard from him with Carlton. And I feel like, he's obviously got some very fond memories of Adelaide. But there's no doubt that it ended acrimoniously. There's no doubt there's not a great connection anymore between the club and Eddie. He's very much a Carlton man, and that's fine. But I just find it sad. I think when he came over and things started to really work out for him, we all thought that he would end his career at Adelaide as being one of our, we haven't had a star that big since Tony Modra, let's be honest. And our club has a habit of doing this. We did the same with Mods. Bloody flicked him over to bloody Freo. One of our favourite sons. And I don't know. It makes me sad. I'm a bit nostalgic and maybe a bit old school, and I understand it's a professional sport these days and all the rest of it. But I just think the bloke was such an intrinsic part of our fabric for a period of time that could have included quite easily a premiership. The way it's all finished up just leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Just the same as I can understand why Aaron's gone to Port, but that leaves a little bit of sour taste in my mouth too. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, anyway. It does. But with Aaron, it's probably a little bit more understandable with her dad.
No. It's all understandable. Like, I know why Eddie left. I know why Aaron left. But it's the what's the word? Anyway, I don't know. It would have been nice. It just stood out to me today with Eddie. I thought, that's it's a bit of a shame. Anyway,
I completely and utterly agree with you on that. But I just think there's a hint of class about him where others tend to seem to focus more on the Carlton, that he will actually mention Adelaide, which I kind of respected, that he would do so and honour a bit of that part of his career. But you are spot on. There is more love from him personally for Carlton, and the way that he ended with us, I think, there's definitely some pain there, and there will be for quite a while. And I think a few people need to take a good hard look at themselves for causing that to happen.
Well, it'll always be the Eddie Betts pocket, won't it? That outer scoreboard pocket will always be the Eddie Betts pocket, even though he pretty much owned all of them. That was the one. That was the original Eddie Betts pocket, and it'll always be that. And I feel like Adelaide supporters have a great love and affinity for Eddie, and I'm sure Eddie has that same opinion about our supporters. It's just It's just a shame that he doesn't have that same level of nostalgia and love for the club. Anyway, we won't dwell on it. It just stuck out to me today. It was a bit of a shame. Alrighty, well, as I mentioned, thanks everyone on YouTube and Discord for joining us tonight, and thanks for those people who participated in the chat. It was always very much appreciated. If you want to support the Crowcast, of course, you can go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. All our supporters are greatly appreciated, of course. And Pete and I will be back on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live at 8:30 as usual. In the meantime, Nikki, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Macca, much obliged, sir. We'll see you both next week.
Always enjoyable.
Alrighty. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on Tuesday night. Good night.
Yeah, good night all.